Hi, I'm Mira and I'm a Czech psychology student, linguist, poet, and I will be talking about being queer and polyamorous in Czech Republic.
Hello, I'm Oliver and I'm a trans guy who make videos about LGBTQIA+ people where they get to talk about anything that they want that somehow relates to them being queer. I recently came back home to Sweden after 3 weeks of traveling through Europe by train, and in Olomouc in Czech Republic I met up with Mira.
So hi, my name is Mira and I come from Czech Republic. I'm 23 years old and I live here, I study here, and I consider myself queer. First of all, because I'm not really into labels that much. When I was younger, I really liked them and they helped me a lot to find myself. Even all those micro labels, I used them and they helped me, but at this time I consider myself queer, and I use the term queer because I like that it's an umbrella term and it kind of shows people that I'm not straight, but I don't need to choose anything specific and I can just be myself, and I always can try to find new stuff about me. Because even my sexuality has really evolved during the years. I started as a person who thought I was asexual because I did not really care about other people. Then I realized, oh, I don't like boys because I don't like boys, not because I'm asexual. I like girls actually. Then I found a guy that I fell in love with, so I was like, okay, I'm bisexual now. Then I found a non-binary person. I was like, okay, I don't care about gender, I'm pansexual now, I guess. And also with my own gender, I just stopped caring. I don't like calling myself a woman, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I'm non-binary or not, so I'm just labelless and queer. That's how I would describe myself.
In the first half of this video, Mira is going to talk about her experience of being a queer person in Czechia, and in the other half, she's going to talk about being polyamorous.
I think the majority of people in Czech Republic, they think that it's pretty nice here for queer people, that there's no oppression. It's not like in Russia where they hit people in the streets. Here it's safe, which it kind of is. But they're also closing their eyes and pretending not to see all those little microaggressions that are happening every day. Like when you go out in the street, you can hold someone's hand, which is a privilege. It's great. At the same time, you see all those stares and people are like, ooh, and doing this. And also, I think the debate about queer people or gay people in Czech Republic is going pretty well, but when it comes to trans people, it's worse. I have two pairs of T4T friends actually, one of them in Olomouc and one of them in Brno. And my friends in Brno, they had really big problems finding a flat because they were a queer pair. They were straightforwardly told they were not gonna get the flat because they're just not their type. It's still better than the majority of the world, and I'm really grateful for that, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. But at the same time, it can be dangerous to completely think everything is 100% fine and that queer people don't need any protection or no more rights, because then we can risk moving slowly towards Hungary. And in Slovakia, it's much worse, and I think Slovakia is on the Hungarian way pretty much. So we need to take care of that and stay in the Western mindset and not go back to the East.
So what legal rights do queer people have in Czechia?
In Czech Republic there is this registered partnership, and for a few years now there has been a movement really advocating for same-sex marriage to be just marriage, because this registered partnership, registrované partnerství, does not have similar rights or the same rights as marriage. You cannot choose where you will be registered, you cannot choose the person who registers you, and you cannot adopt, you cannot adopt even the child of your partner. Your finances are not connected. You have almost no rights as the married couples have. So it's great we have it, and it was the bare minimum that those people were able to pass at that time, but I think it needs a reform, definitely.
Mira thinks that her life might be a little bit easier because people don't always perceive her as queer.
Well, I think life for me in Czech Republic as a queer person is pretty easy because I usually dress on the feminine side as well. I just don't really look queer when people look at me. I don't like get stares when I go down the street. I can be even like straight passing when I need, even though I try to like be vocal with my queerness. People usually tell me, you don't look gay. I get that a lot. So I have all those privileges not to be noticed. But at the same time, I hear all those stories from my friends who are not straight passing, not cis passing, and it's hard for them. For me personally, my mom like completely acknowledges me and loves me. My father still thinks it's a joke. It's not like he abolished me from the family, but he's like, it will pass, that's so weird, why do you do those weird things? But so it's also not that bad. I don't feel like I'm the person to speak on behalf of queer people in Czech Republic this way, because I think they have a lot of problems that I don't encounter.
Mira also wants to share her experience of being polyamorous.
Apart from queer, I would use the label polyamorous for myself because it shapes the way I look at people, it shapes my relationships with people and stuff. And I always liked the idea of like a group of friends being really close, maybe even having sex, you know, those relationships without strict boundaries. When I was a teenager, I kind of played with that idea of just having a huge community where people help each other, live together, you know, and I always liked this. But after I got into my first relationship with my partner, which is actually aromantic, we were discussing this, like, we really like each other, maybe we would want to stay with each other for the rest of our lives. But at the same time, I need to tell you something. And we both kind of told each other that we loved each other so much. But at the same time, what if we met someone else and we fell in love as well? We would not like stop loving the other person, but it would be a shame not to form a relationship that is naturally forming. Shall we just draw the boundary here and never like explore it? And after this talk, we realized that polyamory may be for us, and we started practicing it, and it took us a lot of learning actually. We had to learn a lot about ourselves, about boundaries, about dealing with our traumas, about meeting other people and immediately like being careful about communication. I read a lot of articles, I looked up a lot of interviews, a lot of polyamorous YouTubers and stuff like this because I like to get my research done because that's what I do. We started exploring this and I just naturally started meeting other people as friends and relationships started to bloom. And I just went with the vibe.
And eventually, Mira met another special person.
It was actually with the guy that I met, and from the very beginning I told him, well, I have a girlfriend, but we're polyamorous. And only after he heard that we were polyamorous, his idea about me kind of changed a little bit, and he was like, okay, I always liked the idea of being polyamorous too, maybe we could try together. He had a girlfriend at the time as well, which was also inclined to this. We've been together ever since, I mean with the guy, and it just works, but it's hard. And it's not for everyone. When I say it's not for everyone, it doesn't mean that it's something special or that it's something like better or worse. It's just different, and it's not for everyone because you need to be conscious about your relationships more. I'm not saying that a normal monogamous relationship is not hard. I'm not saying you don't communicate them. I'm not saying like it's any more complicated, but it is. And you need to work on yourself a bit more. You need to understand the other person a bit more. You need to work with jealousy as well. And jealousy is natural in polyamory. It's natural to feel it. But I heard it from a really good Czech polyamorous blogger, which I don't remember the name of, and she told us, when you feel jealous, you need to first stop, take a deep breath, and think about what is making me jealous about the situation that is making me jealous. Not my partner is going to a cinema with his another partner. This is making me jealous, of course. But what about it is making me jealous? Is it because their partner is prettier than me, or I think they're prettier than me, so I am insecure about my appearance? Is it because they're doing an activity that I thought was just for us? Is it about a place they're going to? Do I think the cinema is just for us, or is it a special cinema where we first met? And then you need to work on that, and you need to communicate that to that other partner.
And Mira has an example from her own life of how she has handled a situation like this in the past.
One time I was insecure about that, and we talked to each other about that. And when he went on the date, which I was insecure about, and I found out what was causing it, at the very beginning of the date he texted me, "Hey, I'm having a good time, it's really nice, and I love you." And then they had a nice date, and of course I respected their privacy, and he did not text me more, and I expected him not to text me after that. It really helped me, like this little sentence, and I was not insecure after that. And I even felt joyous for him. I was like, oh, you go, you go, tiger.
Lastly, some tips from Mira to you if you're interested in polyamory.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about going into polyamory, there are some things you need to do before, or I mean, you don't need to do anything, but it's a good advice. First, to work on yourself and to get to know yourself. This is good also when you're just trying to find a relationship in general. To first know yourself, love yourself, and to know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and what are your insecurities. Because those are the things that kind of bring out the jealousy most of the time. Our own insecurities. If you know what you're insecure about, you can then find out what helps you. And also you need to listen to your other partners and try to find out what their insecurities might be, for example. And it's really about communication. But everyone says it's about communication, right? Every post about polyamory is like, communication is the key. But what type of communication? Honest communication. You need to be honest with your own feelings. So you need to be honest to yourself, which is the first step. You need to acknowledge, okay, I really am jealous right now. I really feel vulnerable right now. And I need to admit that to myself first. And then to your partner. And also in the communication, you need to be partners. Which means that you should not use some, I would say, toxic ways of communicating, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person if you communicate like that. It just means that you have not learned how to do it differently, for example, or you don't know how to do it differently. But there are some ways you can communicate with your partner which can make the communication harder than other ways. For example, when you assume that the other partner will know what you're feeling. If you assume what they're feeling. If you take some things for granted, for example. So that's the communication, and you need to be honest with yourself. So when something is too much for you, you need to tell it, and at the same time, you need to compromise when you're together. And it's not a compromise that's okay for they're like, I will be sad. It's more about a compromise where their boundaries are, where my boundaries are, where do they touch, where they cross. And it's a little bit of shaming, you know. It's not easy. So when I say it's not for everyone, I mean it's for everyone who feels like it. If it's not for you, if you don't align with it, if you don't feel like polyamory is for you, it's okay. It's just what you need, what you like, what you want.
And one last important aspect.
And also time. That's a huge, huge thing. If you don't have time for one partner, you won't have time for two. So this is not psychological, this is just like I don't know, a practical thing. You need to have time for other partners, and you need to divide this time according to their needs. I won't say equally, because some partners don't need that much time with you, some need more, and you sometimes have your own ideas, so also time management is a thing.
If you enjoyed watching that video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. I really appreciate you showing your love in that way. If you also want to support the channel financially, that's possible via Patreon, but really no pressure. See you next time.